Hello everyone, MB here, hope you're all having a nice day. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Machamp VMAX, upcoming VMAX from Astral Radiance, as well as going over some deck lists for him. So Machamp V and VMAX are high HP fighting types that smack for a lot of damage, but they have a downside in that they have a high retreat cost and they are also weak to Psychic, which means that Mew's going to have a field day with you, as we'll see with a few lists that we're going to take a look at today. A couple of them are teching in Dark Pokemon to deal with Mew, so there is, potential to deal with your worst matchup. But either way, going into the cards themselves, Machamp V, 220 HP, quite bulky for an evolving V, and it has the attack Revenge Buster. For fighting colors, does 50 damage, and if you bench Pokemon have any damage counters on them, attack does 50 more. It's not awful, to be honest, it's fine, does okay damage. And then Seismic Toss for 2 fighting and colors does 140, which is pretty decent because it wanted KOs and Arceus if you ever get this charged up, but primarily, we're going to be focusing on Machamp VMAX as your overall attacker. So Machamp, 303 HP right off the bat is really high. Then it has the attack Revenge Buster for fighting Colossus, does 80 damage, and if any of your bench Pokemon have any damage counters, it is 140 more. So 220 total is an awful lot of damage. It's going to mean you're going to be like knocking out evolving Vs and whatnot. So just really high damage. And then max charge does 240, and this Pokemon cannot use max charge during your next turn. So Max Charge is kind of like this big blow up move that you can use, similar to how Gengar VMAX has the giant G-Max Swallow, except you'll probably never really use Max Charge, or you won't need to, hopefully. You'll just continuously use Revenge Buster, because you ideally want to keep your attack cost down to 2. So moving on to some of the lists we have one pairing it up with Urshifu and Arceus. I'm personally not sold on this kind of concept of like having all these different moving pieces. I think like the deck survives on its own, but I do think it's cool to see like people experimenting with Urshifu again and trying it out with Arceus. There's also a new Hisuian Decidueye that says if you may search your deck for 2 cards, I think it says Mountain Hunt, so that'll allow you to find like special energy, allow you to find like one-off text as well as choice belt and things like that. So that's pretty cool. And there's also one of the new Voltorb, which I'm a big fan of, and not many people do seem to like this Voltorb, but essentially says you can only use this tag on your first turn going second, and if you do, search your deck for a basic energy and attach it to up to 2 of your bench Pokemon. So you search your deck for 2 basic energy, attach it to 2 different Pokemon. So very simple, get some stuff going, maybe threaten a Rapid Flow, maybe threaten like a Revenge Buster move. I do think it's pretty cool in that sense. And then there is an Hisuian Great Ball, I think it's called, Hisuian Heavy Ball. And that says search, I think it's like swap a card out from your hand with a basic Pokemon from your prize cards, I think that says. And there's also Roxanne that says you can only play this card if your opponent has 3 or less prize cards remaining. And then you shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 6, I think, and your opponent shovels in and draws 2, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. And then Grant down here says your fighting type moves do plus 30 damage. And then at any point during this turn, you can discard 2 cards from your hand and retrieve Grant. So overall thoughts on this list. Not like an amazing fan of obviously just playing a bunch of different stage 1s. I think 2 different VMAX and Arceus V-Star is probably a bit overkill, but it is interesting to see. There's also an interesting Hawlucha in here, the Radiant one, that says your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active VMAX, which is pretty cool. And then moving on to the next list, we have just Arceus, Machamp, Barbaro. It's a bit more consistent. It's kind of like my style of build because it's obviously just going to be a lot more consistent than the one we looked at previously. Yeah, it's not as tech heavy, but it's also like taking a lot less risks. I would still run Radiant Hawlucha, actually. I do think it's worth it, but this list obviously well, it's going to play things safe. We're going to play it safe, And if you already have Arceus online or in real life, then this would be a good place to pick up a champ, really, because you're not really taking any risks. You're not trying to buy up new Cleavor V-Stars or anything. You're just kind of building on what you already have. And it's a 2-2 line as well, so it's quite thin. So if you just want to play Machamp, but you don't really know where to start, I think this is probably your best list. Then for the third list, we have Machamp, Cleavor, Barbaro. So again, using the Barbaro consistency engine. But we're also using Cleavor this time. So Cleavor says for 2 energy, does 120 and then 60 damage to one of your opponent's benched V. And then it has the V-Star power, which we're not that interested in, but it is an option you can use throughout the game. And it says this attack does 30 damage to each Pokemon in your discard pile. So we're probably not going to be using that as much, but the first attack, 120 and then 60 is pretty cool because it's just going to hit, it's going to pair nicely with our first attack that can do 220. So 120, 220, perfect numbers. And then, of course, we have stuff like the Radiant Hawlucha mentioned earlier. We do have an Arangur here with Primate Wisdom because we play in this deck for Gutsy Pickaxe. And so if you don't know what Gutsy Pickaxe does, it essentially says discard the top card of your deck, and if it's a fighting energy, or it's actually draw card, I think. Yeah, I think it's draw card. And if it's a fighting energy, you can attach it to one of your benched fighting type Pokemon. So we can use Gutsy Pickaxe to accelerate energy to our bench Machamps or Cleavors and just get them going that bit quicker. We also see one Masking Colleen, I want to say, Masking Perfume, that says during your opponent's next turn, your opponent's Pokemon don't have any abilities. So that's, I guess, is there to like try and slow down Mew a little bit and give you some more time. But other than that, I'm not too sure. 3 of the new Gapejaw Bog Stadium, which is pretty cool. The stadium says when you place Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you put 2 damage counters on it. So that's obviously great synergy with Machamp over here. And then I think that's about it for new stuff. Already been over Grant. Energy counts fine. 2 Stone Fine Energy because obviously Final Waves is still really popular in the format. So you don't want to be leaning too heavily into them, but pretty cool to see. And then the 4th list, going back to a bit of more out there, I guess, kind of Pokemon deck. But I don't think this one's all right. So this is obviously trying to offset that awful weakness to Mew by playing 2 Galarian Moltres with 4 Dark Energy. I think it's pretty cool. It's also playing the 1 Hisonian Sidgewai V line. The V is primarily for the Mountain Hunt attack, but then the V Star is here probably, I would say, for the V Star power, because I don't think you'll ever be able to charge up the main attack on Hisonian V Star, Decidueye V Star, I should say. But the V Star power says once in your turn you may draw until you have 8 cards in your hand, so I'm guessing that's why that's here. And then the Zapdos is kind of just like a big hitter that's only going to cost you 1 or 2 energy, which is interesting tech. You don't usually see Zapdos that much, but this person obviously thinks it's worth it. 1 Crobat, 1 Luminion, 1 Eldegoss, nice split there. 1 Hawlucha, just again to add the plus 30 damage, obviously quite relevant here. 1 Manaphy, just to protect your Pokemon. And then we see nothing terribly interesting in the trainer department, apart from maybe an XP share. It's a bit random, you don't usually see a lot of XP shares going on. 1 Energy Search is questionable as well, but I guess it's going to help you find either a Dark or Fighting in the turn you need it. 3 Gapejaw Bog again, so notice how these players never tend to lean in towards like 4 stadiums. They always go for 3 or 2. And then we see 3 Stone Fighting Energy, so a little bit of an increase on the previous one, but minus 20 is obviously going to be pretty big, especially when you already are like so tanky at 330. Like one of the other lists was already playing Big Charm as well, so you can make Machamp pretty tanky at that point. So yeah, pretty cool deck. We also see Cheryl as well. That's another point. I guess that's why you're kind of running energy switches and stuff to make use of Cheryl and Moltres and stuff like that. Then Machamp Lucario, a bit more on the budget side. I would say this is kind of like a strict rogue upgrade to a pre-built Lucario deck. I would say this is also strictly better than Lucario. So if you're like currently playing Lucario now, which like I am, I would say, consider building this. It does play a lot of new cards, but apart from that, I think this would be a great place for a beginner to continue if they've already started in Brilliant Stars with something like Lucario Barbaro, for example. So Lucario, obviously, the good synergy here is it's Flying type, so it's a 1-prize attacker. That's cool. But also because it has the ability that will damage itself to search your deck for basic energy. So not only does it accelerate to itself, it also damages itself. So we can make use of the first attack doing mass damage. And then Lucario, for 2 energy, will just finish off a clean hit. So we'll do 220. Then we'll follow it up with 130. It's perfect maths again. 1 Radiant Hawlucha, again, makes sense. 1 Primate Wisdom, because we are playing the 4 Gutsy Pickaxe. Really cheap engine. It's cool to see being used here. 2 Luminion V. It's interesting. You rarely see lists play more than 1 Luminion, but this person obviously, again, thinks it's worth it, which is interesting. 1 Crobat V. And then, of course, the 4 Gutsy Pickaxe. 4 Research, 2 Marnie, 1 Rexan. So never more than 1 Rexan, which is interesting. Now using my voice there, sorry. 1 Grant, which can obviously be used on the car as well. 3 Boss's Order, and then 4 Gapejaw Bog. So this person is playing 4 of a stadium, which is interesting because I wonder if they're afraid of Path to the Peak, actually, because Path to Peak would obviously shut off Radiant Howlucha, as well as Luminion and Crobat. But yeah, it's interesting to see Gape Jawbog here. And then we see a single strike variant of the deck. Again, playing a bunch of different things. I'm not as sure about this variant. I would say in comparison to, for example, this list, which I would say this list actually looks pretty good, to be fair, as long as you don't prize too many moving pieces. This list, I think it's pretty cool. It's straightforward. It's pretty easy to play. And then this list, I'm not so sure about because single strike is already inconsistent as it is, I would say. I think that's a fair judgment. So, interesting. But obviously the synergy here is that single strike Houndoom is going to damage your Umbreon, and then Machamp's going to come in there and just do big damage. There is a new Arangur V, which we don't know if it's going to be in the set or not, but it might be, that says if it's in the active spot, once during your turn, you may search your deck for 2 tool cards. This list happens to be playing 2 Air Balloon, 2 Choice Spell, and then 1 of this badge thing that you can attach to Umbreon. I truthfully do not remember what that badge does, but no one seems to play it, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. But it is cool to see that if you're playing someone like Arangur, you can find yourself an Air Balloon to retreat Arangur, as well as finding, one of these wacky tools. We do see one Diancie, actually. This is an interesting one. I've seen this as a 4 in some of the Dialga lists, and basically what Diancie does is it walls out Boss's Order on your benched V Pokemon. I think they have to be basic, though. They do have to be basic Pokemon. So I guess the whole point of that is you kind of just accelerate energy to Umbreon while manually attaching to Machamp, and then once Diancie gets knocked out, you then come in there with the big boys and start swinging. But yeah, cool list. Sorry. This one is honestly my favorite, just because I really like the Lucario and Gutsy Pickaxe. I think it's a cool combo, along with Gape Jawbog. This list, not so sure about, but I do think it's important to include some kind of dog type answer. This list, again, I'm not so sure if Cleaver is actually doing enough damage. This list, yeah, consistent. This list, bit out there, to say the least. I think it's very out there. But let me know what you think down below. What's your favorite list? And yeah, I hope we see you all in the next video.